The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Michael Wharton. Michael is the Director and Principal Machine Learning Engineer at Kungfu.ai. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, we're delighted to have you. Michael, let's start with yourself, please. Could you give us a bit of a background and journey for yourself in technology, from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to today as a Director and Principal Machine Learning Engineer at Kungfu.ai?
My background is a little funny. I started in aerospace engineering and computer science. I got my degree at University of Texas at Austin. And at that time, I started doing a little bit of work at a research lab here called Applied Research Labs. And although I wasn't doing a lot of machine learning initially, we were working with a lot of remote sensing data and doing classification, segmentation type problems on LiDAR data, satellite imagery, aerial photography, that kind of stuff. And then naturally, as machine learning became a little more popular, we started to use more of those techniques, especially with computer vision. That was a really big one when we started using convolutional neural nets. And then totally switched over, and I worked at SpaceX for about 5 years doing a lot of mostly mechanical engineering, like fluid systems and structures design, just testing a bunch of flight hardware. But since I've been back here in Austin, I've been at Kung Fu for about, I think, a little over 3 years now, and time has totally flown by at that point.
Thank you for the background and taking us to your point of joining Kung Fu. Tell us all about Kung Fu as a business, who you are, what you do, what the mission of the organization is.
Kungfu.ai is a professional services firm. We do everything under the sun that involves machine learning. We've recently started to both branch out into other disciplines as well as to focus in certain industry verticals. But we work on problems that are related to natural language processing, computer vision, forecasting, recommender systems, pretty much just about everything you can think of. But recently we've started to do a little more strategy work, which really is just making sure that our clients are working on the most optimal business problem. We've also focused a little bit in government and healthcare.
So I want to jump into some of the more interesting uses for Kungfu.ai, like whether it be a customer story or particular things that you're known for. But before doing that, could you give us an overview of your role, its responsibilities, and what a day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, so as a director, I have a team of, I think, about 7 or 8 people at the moment. We're at a pretty upward spike in trajectory in hiring right now. But for now, it's a relatively humble team. In total, we're all about 42 folks. But my job is, in part, individual contributor. I'll kind of jump around from project to project and help folks with certain technical challenges, or if they need additional resources, I can go lobby for those. And then the other time is a pretty mixed bag of business development, interviewing, one-on-ones with the team to make sure they're feeling fulfilled and have everything they need. And, this is relatively new for me. Before, I was doing almost exclusively individual contributor work. But this year is about when that shift has started, and it's been fun.
Going back to the users of Kungfu.ai, who are some of the companies that you're working with, or what sort of problems are you working on, and why are organizations coming to use Kungfu.ai over tackling some of the issues in-house themselves? What is it that you bring that's specialized?
Well, to begin with, we have a really incredible team. We have folks from all the big tech company players that you could imagine. So we have some PhDs on staff. I think the diversity of experience we have here is really one of the key draws for potential clients. We've got our chief scientist, Steve Kramer, he's got a PhD in physics and specialization, chaos theory, and all sorts of incredible work. And then we've got one of the other co-founders, ZZ Sai. He's got some incredible experience. He worked at Google. He's a total computer vision expert. So I think when people see our roster of folks that we have on staff, like, oh wow, these are some pretty talented people. I'm sure they can help me with my problem. And we also have an incredible growth team when they're going out and reaching out to potential clients. A lot of that is a little bit of a human touch despite us being in a technical world. So I think they have a great way of reaching out to clients, understanding their problems, and ultimately getting them through the door so that we could have a first conversation. And the types of problems we typically work on, like I mentioned, it's everything under the sun. But if I had to break everything down, probably about a third NLP, so natural language processing, a third computer vision, and then a pretty mixed bag of the rest of it. I mentioned earlier recommender systems, forecasting, some of it's like anomaly detection. But I think some use cases we've focused on a lot are a great example is a paper to digital, like document digitization work. We'll have these customers that have literally millions of documents that they sit on that are historical documents that are scanned that they can't really drag any information out of. And we'll help them use modern state-of-the-art deep learning techniques to pull out, even if it's something as simple as lease contracts, if they're looking for all the history associated with a particular property, or they want to know how much profit they made in a very specific geographical area. You can't really answer those questions unless you digitize that locked up data.
You referenced there the team, the stellar founding members, and the level of elite scientists and technologists there. Can you give us an overview of the broader technology team? You touched on a big part of what you're doing now is involved in building and scaling the team. So obviously you guys are having continued success, but what does the current version of the Kungfu.ai organization look like? And then where are you hoping to get to in the next year to 2 years?
That's a great question. Right now we're pretty focused on, we've got a pretty standard set of teams. We've got the tech team, the engineering folks. We're led by our CTO, Ron Green, who's just an incredible and talented person. But we're mostly machine learning engineers. We've got a couple software engineers. We're starting to branch out a little bit more into data science. And we've got a really active growth team. We have marketing folks that help us out, all the corporate functions like the finance, accounting, that kind of thing. That kind of goes without saying. But we're watching the market and seeing what it tells us. In the case of the growth team, for instance, they'll go out, see what's in the market, see where the demand is. We'll go do a project or two, get our sea legs. And if we start to see recurring themes in the market with these paper to digital projects I mentioned, that'll be a signal to us that we need to go grow our computer vision practice and find more folks that are a little bit well-versed in that kind of work versus other types of work. And we're starting to see a demand in strategy, like I mentioned. So we're really starting to try to build that organization out. And we're also seeing a lot of demand for just data science. A lot of large organizations, they have really big troves of data that they sit on that they don't even know where to start with. And so you need someone who's comfortable with vague expectations and have them go in as a data scientist and just see what they might uncover.
I want to stay on the topic of growth because you mentioned in your introduction that your path to becoming a director and principal machine learning engineer came through the aerospace route. And machine learning is a hot topic, a hot title of the moment. And a lot of people are curious about it. What advice could you offer to somebody who had an interest or at least wanted to explore machine learning? If you were coming out of a degree course now or even entering into your junior year, what advice would you give your younger self as to how you could get into machine learning a bit sooner or where they should focus on?
That's a fantastic question. I think a lot of people get hung up on the fact that they don't have the right background. Like they don't have a traditional computer science background. They don't have exactly the skill set you might need from day one. But I would kind of flip that around and say that's a little bit of a strength. Having a diversity of expertise, seeing a lot of how the world works outside of just these pure computer science techniques is really important. We have folks with economics backgrounds, people with linguistics backgrounds. We've got engineers with English backgrounds on our team. And I think that diversity of backgrounds really helps us shine with creative solutions to problems. First step is don't get discouraged if you don't have the right background, because anybody with a really curious mind can pick it up. But I think as long as you have at least a little bit of math foundations and some programming under your belt, finding somewhere where your passions outside of work intersect with machine learning, deep learning, whatever part of the field you're interested in, finding that link, I think, is the most important thing. Because if the passion's there, all the learning naturally just comes about. So let's say you're really interested in plants. You got plants all over your house. You're really interested in cultivating various species around the house. If you can take that and reframe that as a machine learning problem, maybe you put a bunch of the same pots with the same seeds all over in different environments, track that and see how much they succeed. You could presumably use machine learning to try to predict the likelihood of rapid growth of a particular species of plant, or you got to get a little creative, but if the passion's there, all the rest of it follows from my experience.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Focusing now on the types of people that you're looking to bring into Kungfu.ai, you talked about hyper growth there. Obviously, you guys are having the level of success that would warrant bringing in more people. What opportunities are there for people who are listening now in the data community who are interested in the work you're doing at Kungfu.ai? Part one of that. And then part two would be, when you're interviewing candidates, what is it that you're looking for beyond what's on their resume to assess if somebody would be a good fit for the team?
There are lots of roles that we open and fill pretty quickly. So I would say the obvious answer to the first question is just check out our careers page. But a more general answer would be our strategy practice is growing pretty rapidly. There's a lot of demand there. So anybody that's interested in business strategy, I think we'd love to talk to you. If you have any sort of experience in machine learning or machine learning adjacent, and you just really want to learn, you have a growth mindset, that's one of the key things we look at. It's unrealistic for someone to know everything about machine learning in all the disciplines there are to know about. But if you have this really core value of growth and you're willing to learn on the job, then you can pick up a lot of that stuff later. So I'd say that we're pretty flexible and open to just about anyone that's curious about the role. But in terms of what we look at for the interviewers, we have a couple frameworks we really like to focus on. And we want our people to be humble, hungry, and people smart. We say that a lot. I think those three qualities came from this guy named Pat Lencioni, who wrote a couple books on, I think he's actually a prolific writer about business consulting and organizational design. And we also have 5 core values that we look at. They're listed on our website as well, but it's open, caring, trustworthy, inquisitive, and inventive. We really look for folks that exhibit examples of all of those qualities. And if you can fit the bill on those and everyone on the team likes you, generally we're an easygoing bunch and we just love to hang out with curious people. So that's a little bit of a taste, at least, what we're looking for.
That's a cheat sheet for any candidates listening to who want to be successful in applying. I like that. So, Michael, we were talking off air about the culture at Kungfu.ai and why you really harp on it being such a great place to work. And obviously, we had the impact of COVID, a lot of the challenges around building a culture. Can you describe what you were talking to me about off air around why you guys have been able to harness and nurture such a positive workforce while scaling and growing and working on difficult problems for your customers?
Yeah, definitely. I think the growth mindset is pretty key. We try to develop a culture of learning, growing, no matter what the day-to-day looks like. We always try to carve out time so that we can get better, use research that's really new, test it out, see if it's relevant to applications we're working on. We do sessions each week where we invite external speakers. We have had a couple pretty famous researchers that get on those calls with us and just talk about their research. So the growth mindset, I think, is really helpful because most of the people we hire are the people that really thrive on brain food. Why not focus on the brain food? And then on top of that, it seems like such a silly answer, but I think it's important because people so often underappreciate it, is the work-life balance. So if we don't give people the opportunities to rest, recuperate, focus on life outside of work so that they could be the best person that they can be while they're at work, then it just takes all the creativity and brings it to a grinding halt. You end up with all sorts of other tangential issues and nobody wants that. So we really just try to care about our folks internally and make it so that they want to come to work and are excited about it.
Taking a step back now, looking at the broader landscape of AI, given the work you do at Kungfu.ai, you're working with multiple companies across various industries, and you get to hear firsthand a lot of the problems that they want solving. When you look at the next 12 to 24 months of AI, what are some of the things that you're excited about to see come to fruition, to work more on, and where are you seeing your customers asking for help in the most popular areas?
I'm particularly excited about both healthcare and government applications. There's some really interesting applications in both. And something I probably should have mentioned earlier is we have a really core focus on ethics in AI. We have a group that meets every week. We have some external folks that come and help us out and give us unbiased opinions there. But we're trying to do business in a really ethical way, sometimes even turning down work so that we don't have to sacrifice any of our dignity or morals or anything like that. But if we can take that ethical approach and apply it to things like healthcare and government, I think, there's a lot of signal in the marketplace that those two verticals are really ripe for innovation. There's a lot of funding there, a lot of curiosity and interest. We have a healthcare client right now that's seeking FDA approval for something that we're helping them build. I can't go into a lot of very specific details about it, but I can say that the technology in terms of security and the know-how around regulation about HIPAA and all these other data security requirements, those are things that our organization is really getting better at. And who doesn't want to be around building solutions that reduce the risk of cancer or save folks from diseases or minimize impact? And
Michael, final question from me then. You joined Kungfu.ai back in June of 2019 as a senior machine learning engineer, and you've quickly found yourself as the director and leader of the group in a short space of time. Obviously, in part due to your own talents, but in part due to the high level of success that Kungfu.ai has had during the pandemic. When you visualize the next 12, 24 months, where do you see the business in terms of size, what work you're doing for your customers, and what are you excited about when we come back and interview you again in a couple of years from now?
yeah, I think that in terms of size, who's to say? When I started a few years ago, I think I was number 8 or so, and we've quickly grown to the lower 40s now. I don't see that pace slowing down, so presumably we'll just keep up with that trend. But in terms of the types of what the organization would look like, I would imagine that strategy will be something that is just all but necessary in all of our engagements. We want to make sure that we are working with the client and working on the right problem. Nobody wants to build this perfect solution that's useless at the end of the day. So we want to avoid that as much as we can. But I think there's such a core culture of growth, excitement, and passion for machine learning and everything that's adjacent to it that I'm hoping that we have processes and procedures and tools in place between now and then so that we can not only get bigger, but hold on really dearly to all those things that make it such a wonderful place to work and just all but turn it into the very foundation of every piece of our business as we get bigger, so that maybe one day we're at hundreds of people, maybe it's even thousands. But if we can ensure that remains constant, I think that it truly will be one of the best places to work on the planet.
Michael, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. Great to learn about your own background, your non-traditional route into machine learning, albeit a very interesting one from the aerospace background. Kungfu.ai sounds like a fascinating organization, having incredible success in such a short space of time and no signs of slowing down, with the growth only to continue. So yeah, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. And we look forward to having you back on the show in a few years and hearing about the continued success. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.